Hello everyone, my name is Yuko Tomoto and I'm an associate professor of Yokohama College of Commerce in Japan. Today, I would like to talk about a study of English learning on improved self-confidence among Japanese learners. This slide shows the contents of my presentation. 1. How to motivate English learners and sustain their motivation using ideal second language self. 2. Close relationship between language and its background culture. 3. Methodologies and recent results. 4. Conclusion. I have been trying to find the effective way to motivate our students. It is sometimes very hard because Japan is basically a monolingual country and some students simply don't see the necessities of acquiring English. However, at the same time, they are strongly encouraged to study English hard under the strong government policy, and English proficiency is becoming one of the key factors for the success in the society. I have been using an idea of using ideal second language self to motivate my students to engage in English learning. Some of my students told me that they feel like being totally new persons when using English, more sociable, likable, and culturally free, and I thought it could be one means to motivate students. To see how language affects speakers and how second language self-images are created, I would like to introduce major previous studies in this field. First, it needs to be recognized that all speakers belong to specific cultures, usually those associated with their native language. And as Adler states, no one is culture-free. Downs state that we can think of culture as a mental map which guides us in our relation to our surroundings and to other people. Kaplan explained his idea by describing each culture's thought patterns and stated, language is effect and the expression of a certain worldview that is manifested in the culture. Now, how does the language affect the speaker? Irving Tripp conducted interviews on bilingual speakers of Japanese and English, and she stated, bilinguals are, in essence, two persons in one mind, and they possess two sets of concepts and mental networks, two channels, each of these associated with one of their two natural languages. Another statement was made by Burton. She also had interviews with bilingual speakers of Japanese and English and said, one may therefore give a cultural response in one language, which may differ from one's response in another, and both responses would be true, but only in the language in which they were spoken. McCarthy observed how bilingual speakers change the ways of talking depending on the language they use and led these conclusions. He stated that bilingual speakers with English mother tongue speak more softly and politely when they speak Japanese, compared with when they speak English, being conscious of Japanese culture and society. By acquiring Japanese, they have become more careful and guarded even when they speak their native language, English. On the contrary, bilingual speakers with Japanese mother tongue tend to talk more directly when they speak English. By acquiring English, they have come to talk more openly and straightforward even when they speak Japanese. Now, let me show you some of the examples of differences between Japanese and English languages. As the chart indicates, when we talk about our sister in Japanese, we have to indicate whether the sister is older or younger than ourselves. Otherwise, we cannot sound natural in Japanese. The same thing is applied to brothers as well. On the contrary, as for the word to describe foot or leg, we have only one word ashi in Japanese to cover both parts. So, when Japanese speakers hear the English sentence, Naomi went shopping with her sister yesterday, we immediately wonder whether Naomi's sister is younger or older than her, and we feel uncomfortable not having enough information about it. This is closely connected with Japanese language's background culture, which is more age-sensitive compared with English-speaking countries' cultures. There are big differences about personal pronouns too. English has simple personal pronouns I and you. On the contrary, Japanese has various personal pronouns, and they all show social relationship between speaker and interlocutor, which is older, younger, or who has higher social status, or so on. And partly because of that, and to avoid the conflict, we often omit these personal pronouns and subjects in our conversation. English pronouns I and you sound very equal to Japanese learners of English compared with their native language's pronouns, and therefore some Japanese feel freer to talk to the person with higher status or elderly people in English. Also, starting sentences with I without omitting subject in the conversation makes Japanese learners of English feel easier to express their thoughts and opinions more explicitly and actively. There are differences of cultural concepts too. When we compare the word difference, there is not special meaning in English besides simply referring there is a difference. It's neutral. However, in Japanese, the word chigai, difference, often brings negative tone. Japanese culture values harmony and unity, and being different means more than just simply different, and this influences Japanese speakers. Japanese is also known characteristic for having true women's language. Younger generations employ women's language less frequently. However, there still exist much differences between male and female Japanese language. Some female foreigners who feel uncomfortable about having their words being translated into typical feminine Japanese when they originally make their remarks in English with neutral tones and find later on that they sound so womanly after being translated into Japanese. Now let me introduce the methodology and share the results of the questionnaire. 386 subjects answered the questionnaire. 60 subjects are current students, and the rest have already graduated from college. Their age range is shown as here. 38% of subjects are male and 62% are female. This unbalanced number indicates the general gender ratio of men and women in English-related studies and occupations in Japan. Pavlenko also stated that the dominance of female respondents is perhaps best explained by the preponderance of women in education and language-related professions. The subjects were asked to choose their English level and the frequency of English use. English level measurement was based on CFR criteria, and the results are shown here. There were 10 questions about the language in the questionnaire, and today I will share some of the results here. Question number 1. Do you think the language you speak affects the way you think or talk? Do you feel any differences when you speak Japanese compared to when you speak in English? Question number 2. Do you prefer yourself speaking Japanese or speaking English? Question number 3. Have you been told by your friends or family that your impression, behavior, or voice pitch changes depending on the language you use? 30.1% answered yes, and a supplementary question, how different did they say you were, was asked to those 116 subjects. 80% of them answered that they were told that they become more extrovert in English. 15% were told that they become more introvert in English. These are the comments from the subjects. I was brought up in a very traditional Japanese culture and was often told to talk or act in more feminine way. My friend says that when I speak Japanese, I sound less confident about myself or about what I say, but when I speak English, I sound more cheerful and confident. In English, I am expected to speak more directly and clearly, and people doesn't get offended by that, so I can talk freely. Also, English has many straightforward expressions or idioms, and I feel comfortable talking frankly using them without worrying about people's reaction. My English vocabulary is very poor, and I cannot convey the detailed messages in English. Question number 4. Have you met anyone whose impression, behavior, or voice pitch changes depending on the language he or she uses? 60.1% answered yes, and a supplementary question was asked to them. 75% know someone who become more extrovert in English. These are comments from the subjects. My female friend obviously sounds much more lively when she speaks English, and she notices it herself too. She seems to feel no cultural pressures when she speaks English. My friend never talks about her family openly in Japanese, but in English, she speaks well of her husband and is often proud of her children. Perhaps less social pressures. Just like myself, my friend sounds negatively when he speaks English due to his relatively low English ability. Interesting thing is that we can find great similarities between these two charts. Almost 3/4 of subjects chose more extrovert in English, and almost 15% chose more introvert in both cases. I see some possibilities here to use this phenomena to motivate our students. Something like using language learning as a tool to create new images. Question number 5. How do you think language is affected by its background culture? Low context culture in the US and high context culture in Japan affect how people convey messages. People are expected to guess meanings from ambiguous expressions or hidden messages between the lines in Japan. On the other hand, language is everything in the US. What people say or write is everything. This comment was written by female in her 60s. I find Americans tend to talk logically compared with the Japanese. the English language is structurally more suitable to convey logical and explicit messages than Japanese. In America, where people with different backgrounds contexts coexist together, people tend to express their own thoughts willingly and listen to other people actively for mutual understanding. Both language and people are eloquent under the influence of background culture in English-speaking countries. This comment was written by male in his 50s. Question number 6. Do you think it is possible to construct a new image of yourself or improve self-esteem through second language learning? Studying a new language gives us the chance to know ourselves better. By learning and experiencing new styles of expressing ourselves or facing new ways of thinking, new values, and a new style of interacting with people. Our original self-image and our second language self-image will probably be integrated in the future, and the ideal self may be completed. This comment was written by female in her 20s. Yes, willingness and effort to convey messages better in second language may also improve one's conversational skills in the mother tongue too, eventually leading to the construction of a new ideal image of oneself, with the improvement of self-effectiveness. This was written by male in his 50s. As a conclusion, I would like to say these 4 things. 1. Language and culture are inseparable. Speakers are influenced by both language and the background culture associated with the language. 2. Some people change the way they talk depending on the language they use or the person they talk to. They are constantly constructing and updating identities through empathy with interlocutors. 3. Creating ideal second language self can be the motive for English learners in monolingual country. 4. It is foreseeable that there are great possibilities if learners make use of second language self-images to construct new and favorable identities, improving their self-esteem. Ideally, English classes will not only help Japanese students acquire language skills, but also a sense of international awareness and higher sense of self-esteem through the experiences of expressing themselves more assertively and affirmatively in English. This is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for listening.